Hi everyone, hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes. Yes, Attack, we can hear you. So, welcome, guys.
We're just going to give it a couple more minutes to get everyone here. Hi Steve and Sam.
This is Sam. Hi, Attack.
How are you? You seem like you're driving.
Yeah, I'm on the road. I'm trying to head home fast. So, yeah.
No worries, no worries. Have a safe drive then in that case.
All right.
How is everyone enjoying their week?
We've been okay, Sid.
Well, let's get started. Well, it's 2 minutes already. Yeah, today we're going to talk about how can farmers access Web3 tools. I think this is a really interesting discussion because, like, I can just imagine, like, all these great tools that are being created and are being deployed, and it's like really fascinating about, how do they get to the end user, the farmer at the local level. So, yeah, I'm going to give it a chance to some of the Shamba team and talk about if there's anything they're working on in terms of Shamba, because we have these town halls every week, and so we're kind of changing it up to kind of have a little bit about what Shamba is doing and what they're working on, and then we're going to move into discussion straight away. And so yeah, if there's any updates shared, Sam or Steve or Kennedy, that would be awesome.
Thank you, Attack, and hi everyone. Nice to have you here. I think this is gonna be an interesting discussion. Just thinking about farmers, even just access to Web3 tools, I think is far off. We have to even start with the basic Web2 tools and how inaccessible they are to certain classes of farmers. I know tech is one of these things that has tended to be a bit has to have classes and categories whereby you're seeing there are some people who have access to it, there are some people who don't. So what we need to do is to explore when we are talking about access. What does access mean? Is it access in terms of the technology? Is it access in terms of affording these tools? What are we talking about when we are talking of access? So nice to be on this call and looking forward to a great conversation. Yeah.
Um, Hello. Yeah, I guess I'll go. I'll go first. Thank you, Ken, for what you've mentioned. When you speak about access, what I see about access is access. Sorry, I'm traveling. Yeah. So when it comes to access, first the farmers. First of all, they need to know the opportunities because before you actually give them access to certain tools, I feel that the opportunities that are available to this farmer are uh, are things that are basically drivers, drivers for them to actually realize what is actually required for them to be able to reach to that level where they can actually get those opportunities. Then now this actually brings in the concept of the tools that are necessary for that, because when you say like the old adage goes, necessity is that need first. So we have to tell the farmers have to be sensitized about what they can actually do, situations where they can get different resources, be it financial, be it from different levels, like different levels of goals, like improved production or increase in production, so or access to different markets. So I think the opportunity there are farmers out there that right now the only connection they have with the outside world is through proxies, through middlemen, and these middlemen will actually control of the market, and the farmer would never ever know that they actually have chances to actually even improve their lives on the ground. So I think maybe we could start around from that level. How do we sensitize these farmers over these different opportunities that they actually have? Somebody might have let's say there's a farmer that might have something like a quarter an acre, but because most of the farms that are around the region where they are, they will keep on doing the farm practices of what are called okay, crops for individual consumption. There's a word I've just forgotten. Crops for individual consumption. Yeah, so they might plant they might just plant something for their own sustainability, but then there would be something else that they will do to actually get much more from that place. Maybe access to different markets where they can sell certain goods that are really in demand. And we know that we have favorable climates for some of those crop types. Yeah. So I think maybe we can start. It's good that Wes you mentioned that. Maybe we can start at the level of what type of information do we make available? How do we tell this? What when we talk about even
Yeah,
the tools, what tools do we need to actually even reach that farmer in a very simple way for that
yeah,
farmer to actually know what benefits they can get? Yeah, maybe we could start at
yeah.
that
So
level. Yeah.
yeah, thank you, Steve. I think that makes a lot of sense. So it's not even just access to the tools and the financing; it's actually even access to information itself,
Yeah.
access to information and to opportunities about what is possible in certain paradigms. And I totally agree with that. I think when it comes to especially new technology, you find that the reason why a lot of groups like farmers might be excluded is that they tend to be among the last to find out about these technologies. They tend to be among the last to explore the benefits of these technologies. And so they kind of like miss out from being part of the conversation when these technologies are being developed. So potentially thinking about the accessibility of even information itself, I think that's actually a very key part of democratizing things like Web3 tools. Maybe pass it back to Attack. You could have somebody else also chiming in.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from Syed and Sam and Stefano as well.
Yeah, hey guys, sorry for being a bit late. It's been absolutely crazy day here. But my name is Stenver Erko. I'm the chairman of Solid World DAO, and you can think of us very simply as a launchpad for carbon credits. Essentially, we work with carbon funds and help them to de-risk their investments, make them liquid, enable lending and borrowing, bring price transparency to the industry. And ultimately, we believe that if we solve the financing problem of the space, because it's so hard to find investments for carbon projects, then through our solution, the funds will start deploying way more capital into the space than before, at least 10x.
No, that's great to have you here. Syed or Sam?
Okay, maybe give me. I can give my reviews after Syed. Kindly, I'm in a noisy place, so I need about 3 minutes.
No worries, no worries. Thierry, you there?
Yes. So I think, yeah. So actually, as Steve has explained, like if we just make like as simple as possible for farmers, then only like they can access the Web3 tools easily and make it interactive for them in terms of like rich GUI and all, so that they can just interact with them like the way they used to interact with the Web2 tools. I think some of the Web2 tools are available for farmers. So similarly, we can provide a Web2 like interface, and in the backend, like as always, Web3 can lie behind the scenes. So yeah, these are some of the ways.
Okay. Maybe I can give my view. So when we talk of the issues of access of these tools to farmers, in my view, I think Steve has touched on something that I was thinking about: the issue of access to information. But the other advantage you have is that technology has really advanced at the moment, and there are so many farmers today who at least own some tools that can actually benefit them when it comes to information. So I think there's a huge opportunity in this area which you need to explore. And in my view, I think this would really benefit and can also give because at the end of the day, these tools have to be used. There are so many tools that are out there that have been developed, deployed, but no one is using them. Probably it's because of value. They do not see the value of these tools. So we need to also think about the value that we are adding to, that we are bringing to these farmers by using these tools.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I guess my question would be like, are Web3 tools ready and are they available today? And I guess like, what are some examples of current working Web3 tools that are being used by farmers?
Yeah, if I could go first on that, I do believe we have some Web3 technologies already deployed out there in the field, already being used on the ground. And a good example that I can give of this is parametric crop insurance, Web3 based parametric crop insurance. So basically, there are several pilots being run in Kenya. I know guys like Etherisk. Etherisk is a decentralized platform for insurance. They are having some pilots in Kenya. I believe they've partnered with Acre Africa, which is another organization that has been working with smallholders and has thousands of them who they work with. And I think they've been providing index insurance, traditional index insurance. And now through this partnership with the Derisk and others, they've started pivoting to a Web3 angle in order to take advantage of the automation, the efficiency, and all of that other good stuff that comes with smart contracts, the transparency, reliability, what have you. So parametric crop insurance is a great example of a Web3 tool that, has a lot of potential for impact, especially in this day and age of climate change. We are seeing that smallholder farmers, and particularly in the developing countries, are the most exposed to a lot of these climate risks, because these are the people who depend their sustenance, as Sam was talking about earlier on. Actually, it was Steve who was talking about subsistence farming. A lot of these people, they depend on the land that they live on to sustain themselves and their communities. So having this kind of safety net in the form of, insurance that is reliable, that is transparent, that will always pay out, that there won't be any games with the insurer, I think it really opens up, a whole new, field for farmers. It enables them to access some financial inclusion that they were previously unable to get, because then they're getting this financial product in the form of this insurance, and it's actually going a long way towards making them, more resilient to climate shocks. And maybe if I was just to give an example of why parametric crop insurance is actually such a big deal, it has been shown that the automation that can be achieved with smart contracts and, in parametric smart insurance, cutting out the middleman, cutting out this guy, that guy, that can lead to up to 40% savings in the cost of delivering that insurance. So you are looking potentially at a regime that allows the insurance product to eventually become cheap enough for smallholder farmers to afford. So then this now lent us into the next dimension of access, which is financial access. When you're talking of financial products, unless you make them financially affordable to those people to whom they're targeted, then those people are not going to be able to access them. And I think this is one of the best things that we are seeing with Web3. It is actually transforming accessibility from multiple dimensions, financial accessibility being one of them. So that is a simple example, a low-hanging fruit I can give of a Web3 tool that is being very successful. I'd be curious to hear what other examples other guys have seen on the field. Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add in terms of if there's any interesting Web3 tools that are being used by farmers currently? So in terms of information, someone mentioned before. Oh, sorry, Mohammed, go ahead. Are you there, Mohammed?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah. So for me, I don't really have like an example of a tool, a Web3 tool that is currently being used out there. What I would also like to ask for the few of us who have actually interacted with some of these tools, um, what is the interface like? Because for me, it's not only about the tool itself, but it's also about how the end user gets to interact with it. I remember there was a time a friend of mine was doing a mobile app for farmers, and one of the problems that he encountered at the field is most of those farmers did not even have smartphones to install that mobile app. So at the end of the day, they ended up reverting to something like USSD just to include more farmers using the service. So as much as there's the technology behind what we want to build or what we are building, but what about the interface? What about how these farmers are going to interact with these tools? What are we doing to try and standardize some of these interfaces to make it easier for these farmers to adopt these tools?
Yeah, I think to answer that, I think there must be some like hardware, like simple hardware tool, which is having some software embedded in it, which will itself interacting with the Web3 tools. So, like to make it easy for farmers, there must be some like hardware sort of thing, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
just as you said, I think one of the solutions to that, which maybe I know in the long run it's where we'll go to, it's the use of sensors. If, as Mohammed has said, that it's actually true that some of the farmers don't have access to some of this technology, that is for because a data collection tool essentially just collects information from the field. At one time, we will, and it's not even long from now, but in a very short while, we will go into use of sensors. Yeah, I think with as technology progresses, we're going to a level where sensors are going to be cheap enough, just the same way we can access phone devices, enough for these sensors to be actually placed and actually send out information in real time for action. As much as we have satellite information, we can actually connect what the sensor says versus the satellite data that we have. But then we have the issue of latency in some of these satellite products. But with sensors, that can actually be one of those technologies which you've mentioned here that can actually help and support toward that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Steve.
So I guess my other question is, in terms of training, since you guys are talking about this topic, like where does training play a role in providing some sort of basic tools to farmers? Because as it is, like there are some farmers in really rural areas that don't have access to internet, right? So I guess like how can training farmers and providing resources to farmers be bridged effectively for them to access Web3 tools? And anyone can jump in, by the way.
Yeah, hi. I can take a stab at this question. This is a Sovereign Nature Initiative. I'm Caitlin Icom, speaking and program manager. So I think when it comes to our perspective as a foundation, it's not only important to come up with a basis for including the farmers in the training, like figuring out how to help them understand the new technologies, but also to have them involved in the creation of the technologies as early as possible. So one of the things that we focus on at our organization is identifying conservancies or land trusts in this case, and figuring out their ecological challenges, and then bringing in tech teams that are capable of creating new technologies to address these challenges. But the key thing to note here is that as these new technologies are being developed, we're always soliciting the presence of the stakeholders in this case to make sure that the technologies are fully formulated for their needs and matches their needs. So I feel like when they're involved in every step of the process from the beginning, then the training is inherently easier. But that's just from my perspective.
I think
Thank you.
in my view, I think we are looking at access in terms of the technology aspect of it. But I imagine that we could even have guys accessing tools, even if it's USSD. You can have a Web3 application or some tools that are running somewhere, but guys or farmers in the ground are maybe accessing them via USSD or via interfaces for those who have smartphones. From experience, I've seen where guys like these farmers, it's not that they can't afford these smartphones or some of the sort. It's only that maybe they're not seeing the need, or they are not. Maybe there's nothing that is keeping them from using or needing these phones. So if you bring value to these guys, you tell them that by using this application, you'll be able to, instead of making a dollar, you start making $3 or $4. I think everyone will just go on and acquire these gadgets. So it's a matter of one, information, and then the aspect of the value that you're bringing to these guys. This is what we need to focus much on, in my view.
Thanks, guys. I think I also want to chime in. And before I tackle the question on training, I want to just go a step back on that previous discussion on the interface, and especially thinking about the user experience. As Sam has spoken just before, talking about USSD technologies like that, they're already ubiquitous in Africa. They've been used by all the different apps, especially in fintech. When you're talking of fintech and you're talking about mobile loaning and lending, most of this is happening through maybe interfaces such as of course mobile phones, but also USSD. So this is something that is has been here for more than 20 years. A lot of people are familiar with it. I think smartphone technology and applications, they are still a bit complicated to some of the rural folks. But when you're talking of USSD, that is an interface that has been proven. And one of the best things that I like about USSD is that it even accommodates those people who are not literate in terms of having gone to school and learned how to read and write. USSD offers the option of actually even having voice prompts, and you can have somebody being guided through a user menu by listening to prompts. They are told, if you want to do this, press that. If you want to do this, press that. Basically branching logic. And that means that it opens up accessibility on a whole new dimension. You can have people in rural areas, people who don't even know how to speak, maybe English or maybe whatever language is used in a particular region, but they do know how to speak vernacular or their mother tongue. You can have those voice prompts being done in that native language. And so basically this allows anybody to be able to use this technology irrespective of how much education they have. So I think that is a critical part of accessibility, thinking about, just beyond the shiny cool tools that we are used to. What about the people who don't really have all that much capacity, and what kind of systems can be put in place for them to interface with? And I think this now ties in very well as I segue into the training question. And I'd like to give an example from here, Kenya, where I am. I think the other day I was in a taxi headed to town, and it was a taxi that was playing a radio station that was in vernacular, and I was shocked to hear that the radio presenter who was speaking in vernacular, and it was actually a show for farmers and rural folks. He was telling them about Web3. He was talking about what cryptocurrencies are, what non-fungible tokens are. He was talking about what networks like Ethereum and and all these others are, and he was explaining it in such a simple way that even that person in the village who hasn't ever heard about Web3 or crypto, this is something that they can digest and something that they can start conceptualizing. So I think when it comes to the question of training, we need to think about what works best in different areas. In some places, it might be, having like workshops or something of the sort. In other areas, it might be some programs that are broadcast on media such as TV and radio. But I think by and large, we need to accommodate different channels in order to get that message across, because essentially that is what we're trying to do. It is trying to get the message across, as Steve was saying, trying to get the information in the hands of those people who can then be able to use it to better their lives. Yeah. Back to you, Siad. Back to you, Attack.
No, that's really great. That's really good. Yeah, I would love to hear from Mohammed and Stevena, and I think her name is Grubanani, I think. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. Sorry if I butchered the name, but I'd love to hear from you as well. And the guys, Seven's here.
Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Well, I'm not working on Web3 tools for farmers, but I used to work with a lot of tooling to do for farmers. For example, my previous company founded eAgronom, which is a post-Series A and engineering Series B. It was making farm management software for farmers, and now is turning farmers into carbon farmers. And what I can say is, like, if you want to work with farmers, you definitely need to speak their language. It's a very specific group of people with their own culture, and they have very tight networks. They listen to each other. Their neighbor is always the best source of information. And like, if you just go out there and like try to do massive marketing campaigns, that's not going to work. Farmers is all about personal relationship and like these connections. If you look at any successful farming company, like any company that works with farmers, for example, John Deere or these fertilizer sellers or etc., then they always have multi-decade-long relationship with farmers. They hire people who talk with farmers, who work with farmers, and that's paramount if you want to find any adoption to Web3 technology among farmers. There are, of course, many farmers who speculate with tokens, but that's not the same as actually using the technology. And yeah, it's at the same time extremely important field. I mean, farmers, it's the foundation of our society. They make our food. We cannot live without them. And I think that making innovative tools for them is massive challenge, but extremely important to make sure it's long-term scalable and we can actually make our food production more efficient.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I really liked what he just said, and I very much agree. Like, farmers listen to other farmers, like the leading farmers in the county or in the city. They know who each other are. And I think it's like Web3 is hard because it's about like wallets, not people. But we need a network of people. And so like I think that true adoption is going to require, someone to live in that farmers community, to speak their language and show them how to do it. And really we need the farmers themselves to be showing others how to do it. But it's hard. I mean, try to get them to join a Twitter talk on Friday. But y'all are doing good work, very much so.
No, thank you for that. Sam, Sayed?
Yeah, actually, I think so. Actually, along with making the interface easy, we have to make it like in terms of financial also, we have to make it more economically feasible for the farmers in order to make the Web3 products accessible to them.
In terms of like, oh, sorry. Go
Cost
ahead.
effective, I mean.
Can I add something?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if anyone has explored the angle of possibly targeting first, like the stakeholders that are involved in the actual transport of goods, because maybe this is a way that we can get the farmers to trust the technology, because yeah, farmers and all of the stakeholders in between, a lot of them end up living quite far from a bank, right? And perhaps a good way to get them to be introduced to the technology is by involving the transporters first.
I can add from my side that definitely transporters, machinery sellers, fertilizer sellers, seed sellers, all of those people are good people to go through to the farmers. They can be your channel partners. If you can get them to promote you, it's way easier. What also seems to work really well that we did in the past, and it was excellent for our country expansion, is to find the best and most reputable farmers in the region, get them to use it, whether for free or even pay for them or whatever. And if they love it, then they'll start telling about it to others, and then it starts spreading like wildfire. So yeah, it's all about personal connections in there. I actually disagree with Saeed. It's not about making it accessible financially for farmers. To be frank, farmers they hear about fertilizer sellers and chemical sellers coming to them all the time and saying, this gives you like X amount of efficiency, and here's our science that proves it. They don't believe that. They believe their neighbor. They believe the reputable farmers. So it's more about reputation than it is about actual facts, because nature in farming is super complex, and they know it, and they also know that nobody has the real facts. So it's a lot more relationship based in there often.
Yeah, actually, it's right. Okay, so actually, it's more about basically farmers' community, I think. Right, Stanver?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about community in there.
Okay, great.
It's all about trust, right? Because the thing is, I had some projects in Ethiopia in 2015, and my project failed because what I observed was that the big challenge is getting a farmer that has been doing the same thing in his family for generations, trusting some consultant that has absolutely no idea they don't give an impression, at least to the farmer, that they know what it's like to work with their hands in the dirt. So I think, yeah, the big barrier, like with everything else, is trust, and a great way to hack the trust is through the people that they already trust, right?
Precisely.
Yeah, if I could also chime in on that, I think it's actually something that I've also seen on the ground, because like a lot of the index insurance that is usually sold in Kenya, they typically go through value chain stakeholders. So looking at agro dealers, looking at people selling these fertilizers and whatnot. So a lot of the index insurance products tend to be bundled with some of these other inputs. And I think the reason that is done is, there's this whole goodwill that farmers already have with those intermediaries. They're the people who they trust when their crops are having a problem. They'll go buy the herbicide from there, or if they need to apply fertilizer, they'll go for it from those guys. So they already trust them. And I think from what I've seen, bundling, technologies or new products together with existing products from trusted, participants or stakeholders, it tends to raise the adoption rate. So maybe something interesting, and I've already seen this happening in Web3. With the earlier example I gave of parametric crop insurance, there are people who are bundling that with fertilizers, with inputs such as seed. They're bundling it. When somebody buys a package, they're buying a package that comes together with all of these things, and on top of that is crop insurance, powered by Web3. And I think this is a potential route towards making more of this technology, accessible and actually trusted by farmers. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. And it's great to be here. I'm actually from the Arbol team. And one of the things, our primary focus is parametric insurance, primarily focusing on working with farmers. And I think, onboarding farmers into Web3 is a really cool idea. But what we've really focused on at Arbol and then D-Climate, which is another company we work on focused on data infrastructure, is how we can get old school industries, regular users adopting blockchain technology without ever really knowing that they're using it. And I think that that's how you really get to real world mass adoption in other industries, because the kinds of index insurance products, the parametric insurance products that we work with use blockchain in the infrastructure. But farmers never need to connect a wallet if they don't want to do a fully on-chain product. And they never need to know how to, for example, use a MetaMask, bridge to Polygon or some other chain or any of these other things that we work with in Web3. They can do it in a way that involves using fiat, their local currency, and that's kind of customized and tailored to their needs. I think the way that we get farmers into Web3 is by getting them to use the tools that we're building without them needing to really get into these difficult user interfaces or user experiences. When you make that user experience extremely accessible to any kind of user, that's how you really unlock the power of the technology that we're building here, and then the rest is really simple. I also want to echo something that Stenver said that I really agree with, which is this is all relationship based. We don't spend $1 on digital marketing because at the end of the day, somebody's not going to buy insurance from you. A farmer's not going to buy crop insurance because they see an ad on Google. They're going to buy it because their neighbor is using this insurance product. It's worked for them. It's saved their livelihood. And it's something that gives them financial stability and the ability to plan proactively without needing to worry about whether a drought or excessive rainfall is going to ruin their harvest and make it difficult for them to meet their bank obligations. So building those relationships is important, but also making that technology really second nature is critical.
Yeah, I second what Robbie has just mentioned, because I tried once to explain the whole concept of Web3 to some of my relatives, and what they really grasped so much from that was I was trying to explain to them the concept of carbon credits, and so they were like, so they didn't want to know much about what they just said. So there's a bunch of land management practices that I can actually adopt and then get paid. So that's what they looked at mostly. They didn't care about what I was saying about smart contracts or all that. And they were like, they even told me that you know that they were so excited about it because they were like, this is information that we haven't known. So you mean that we can actually go and do some stuff back there at home, and then everyone will get into it. I think the part since carbon credits are basically payouts, and you can also sell digitally through dynamic NFTs, carbon profile for your land or something like that. You are right, Robbie, that they won't really need to know what goes on under the hood. What guys will be interested in, and I think that is one of the biggest incentives. That is why the whole notion of carbon credits were created, so that there's an incentive for people to actually protect the planet, and because of just that access to that funding or access to that market, it will be something that will really stimulate. I can say for sure, because I'm looking at the environment we are in right now here in Africa. That farmer that had no access to some of those funds, once they see that cash actually comes, they speak around. Africans are very social. I'll speak about the context of here. I understand when Will, you mentioned that it was very difficult to get farmers to join a Twitter space, but so from what Robbie has mentioned, this is something that here in Africa people usually just talk. Like, for example, let me give examples. When in the Web2 space, when something like WhatsApp was introduced into our country, there were no adverts. We didn't see a single advert, and we all started using that system. Nobody ever did an advert for YouTube, but just because of that, everyone started using. Nobody advertised Telegram. We all just speak amongst ourselves. When somebody has realized something, they'll tell someone else. But in a very short time, because we are social, that type of information actually goes around. So what Robbie said is actually very practical for the African situation. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And we work with a lot of farmers in Africa because this is where you have not just issues with insurance accessibility, but also with data availability. Only 22% of weather stations throughout the African continent meet global reporting standards. And so it's not just about creating accessible products that meet the needs of farmers on the ground. It's also about how we incentivize new data collection. So the first step is creating a product that farmers can use and that gives them the ability to plan their financial livelihood in advance. And they don't care if smart contract technology is powering it. They just care that they're going to get paid if there is a drought or flooding event, and that they're not going to have to argue with the insurance company or have any, lack of transparency in a claims process. That's all they care about. The second issue where I think Web3 could be a game changer for farmers, and I think that you mentioned this really well, is aligning incentive structure so that we can move to a pay-to-preserve model so that a lot of these critical at-risk ecosystems, many of which are in Africa, can be preserved by land stewards, landowners, farmers, and then ultimately national governments. Because right now, the work that the UN, a lot of intergovernmental organizations are doing for national land preservation is insufficient. I was in Central Africa earlier this year and was speaking with government officials, and basically what they told us was COP26 had offered them between $3.5 million to $5 million for forestry preservation for regions like the Congo Basin, which is the second largest old-growth tropical rainforest in the world behind the Amazon, which is now a net emitter. If we lose the Congo Basin, which we're on track to in our lifetimes, we lose the battle against climate change. And so we need to move critically towards a pay-to-preserve model so that we can work with these governments to get them the money that they need to preserve these forests instead of cutting them down. And this is a key area where we can use Web3 tools to work with traditional entities in order to preserve our crucial at-risk ecosystems. And they don't need to interact with the technology. They don't care, as you said, what's happening under the hood. They just care that this works and that they're getting a better deal than they currently are. Because I can tell you, I'm from New York City. There are apartments in New York City that go for much more than $3.5 million. That's a pittance for national forestry preservation for ecosystems that are critical to our livelihoods.
Okay, so actually my question to Robbie and Steve is that, so actually what's the education level of farmers in your areas? Yeah, because if I say about India, in India almost actually almost if you say almost all the farmers are like mostly illiterate, so they don't know how to use technology much. So like only they're basically the next generation which are going to schools and all, they used to tell them how to operate and all. So that's what I want to ask you guys.
Uh, can I jump in here, Sayed?
Yeah, sure, feel free.
So, as you said about India, I would disagree that most of the farmers are literate.
Okay.
Since the education drive started in India, I mean, present day farming generation is very much literate. They are running a lot of technology backed agricultural solution, but it's not about what the user, whether he is literate or illiterate. You would see a lot of illiterate folks using smartphones, right? So it boils down to utility. What utility you are providing to whoever user it is, be it farmers or any layman that you are offering to use your tools, right? So it boils down to utility. It boils down to what kind of problems you are solving for them. What is the value proposition, and what are the like pros and cons, like everyone weighs before making any purchase. What are the pros and cons of any tool? So that simple thing. It's applicable globally, worldwide, whether you are sitting in Europe or in Africa, it doesn't matter. And I'm sure a lot of folks doesn't know how their smartphone operates, like what the chip does inside. So I see Web3 tools as like core infrastructure in the same way as the embedded chip does into your smartphone. You don't know from the where chip comes from or how it is built or what core number of cores it has or what gigahertz frequency it is operating at. You don't really care. All you care is that it is working and it is giving communication with the outside world. So I think it boils down to that utility.
Okay. Yes.
Hey everybody, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Cool. I agree with what everybody is saying, that people don't really care. My name's Kyle, by the way. I live in Zambia. I've lived here for about 8 years, mostly working with rural communities, living in rural communities, and
So
working
one
on
point I'll add
projects.
in response to the previous question is it's not so much about whether farmers are illiterate. It's about overcoming, language barriers or communication barriers. And so when we're a U.S.-based company, we have people all over the world, but we're a U.S.-based company. And so what we often do is we work with cooperatives or people on the ground who represent or work with a ton of farmers in order to figure out what their needs are, how we can structure a good program for them, and then to communicate those needs directly to the farmers so that we're not miscommunicating and so that we're actually able to structure those products correctly. So a good example of this is we did a large parametric insurance program that actually just paid out with Chainlink for smallholder farmers in Cambodia. And we did this with a cooperative organization called AgriBuddy. And they were able to essentially assess the needs of those farmers and how to communicate with them because they are committed to working with those farmers in the country. They're based in the country, and those partnerships are essential to working with smallholder farmers because ultimately, as Denver and others in this chat have said, it's all about trust. It's all about forming those relationships and all about making sure that you're creating tools that will help and not harm.
No, thanks for that. Sorry, Ron Goma. Go ahead. You were saying something in regards to where you live.
Hey, sorry, I got cut off. I think I just got dropped. As I was saying, I've lived in Zambia for about 8 years, and I agree with everybody's point that farmers or rural communities don't really care how these tools are developed, but they just want to make sure that they are usable and that they work well. I just want to kind of chime in for like an opportunity in Zambia. Zambia has set up a structure under the law, under the forestry department for community protected forests. So this allows any community or group in Zambia to get permission from local leadership and government to allocate open areas of land as community protected forests. And that there's multiple of them already registered. And most of these community protected forests don't have revenue sources coming into them. So I think if anybody would like to get in touch to chat about developing tools or working together to try and bring in sustainable revenue sources for these community protected forests, that would be really cool. So thanks. Keep up the great work.
No worries. Thanks for that. Anyone else?
Yeah, maybe I can add something. What I might say is, what I want to say is, I think even thinking about these farmers, we also have to look at sustainability. Because I think we've had use cases whereby so many solutions and tools are deployed, but they're never used after the consultant or the provider has left the ground. So we need also to explore why maybe this is happening or happens, so that we can ensure that the tools that are coming from this frontier like really go into use and they benefit the actual farmers who are targeted.
If I can add one more point, since we are comparing Web3 tools with Web3 tools with Web2 tools, Web2 tools are mostly centralized, and Web3 tools are going to be decentralized. So I think user, be it a farmer or any other user, will face some kind of issues in during the learning curve that will be there. So something to solve those issues, take feedback, and give a solution. Those kind of arrangement will be like a very necessary for any kind of Web3 tools because of the very nature of these tools. Yeah.
Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Hi, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah. I'm Ashish here. Okay, so I don't know about how the existing crop insurance is done in your country like Kenya or New York, but in India the existing crop insurance include the insurance from the beginning stage only, like the when the farmer sow the seeds till the cultivation takes place, everything is insured. So how does we take these steps into consideration while doing some crop insurance? Because parametric crop insurance does not include these small steps like insect harming the crops. There may be some malfunction while the farmers may be sowing the seed at the starting stage. There may be some cultivation problem. So how are we going to ensure that the farmers are getting paid for this also? Because in India they are also paying a premium on these also. So how do you suggest that parametric insurance should overcome and traditionally solve the existing crop insurance problem?
Okay, so Ashish, apart from just there are different ways of gathering information for small scale farm holders. First, we have satellite imagery which can be used, but then at the levels of resolutions that we have with some of the freely available climatic data sets, the spatial resolution might not be, we might not be able to see directly into the detail of a small farm, but then we'll be able to tell whether it actually rained and what capacity within that entire region where the farm is. We'll be able to tell large pieces of data set that that farm is within. But also within the Web3 space, we also have organizations and capabilities of using hardware like sensors within the ground, and these sensors will be able to monitor that. Also, Ken can also give you much more information since he was involved with an organization that used sensors on the ground for agricultural monitoring.
Yeah, sure. Steve, thanks for that. I think myself, I have done that, but we weren't really able, we weren't really looking at things like insects. I think those are some hazards that are, maybe outside the purview of something like remote sensing and even most sensors. I'd be curious though to hear how Robbie and the team at Apple Market who are dealing with crop insurance, how they're handling such issues of those multi-stage risks and how they are able to assess that something has happened or a risk has occurred.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can kind of get into our process if that would be helpful. So basically, the way that we do everything at Arbol is using data. So every contract that we do is data driven. So an example of a simple contract that we will do for a farmer is either excess rainfall or for drought conditions. And so we will use a publicly verifiable data set from DClimate that both parties have agreed to and signed off on in advance. And so this could be a data set that derives from the National Weather Service, from NOAA, government sources that are trusted and, as I said, publicly available. And what a contract could look like is very simple. It lasts for 30 days. And if the farmer gets below the average rainfall precipitation for that season, they get the predetermined payout that they requested at the beginning of the contract. And because all of that is data driven and it's done via the risk parameters that we set with our data science team, we don't really have a claims process. They don't need to file claims paperwork. Our smart contracts execute and they get paid 14 days after the data comes in. So that's a very simple example of what a contract could look like for rainfall, but we also do risk parameters for energy companies who are looking to hedge fluctuations in energy for utilities, for cloud cover variations, for solar, wind speed variations for wind farms. There's a lot of hedging instruments that we can build using data, but all of this assessment is done using either a simple data set instrument from DClimate or advanced modeling, depending on the type of risk that we're looking at for parametric. Basically, the name of the game is that while we do work in about 4 industries right now, energy, maritime, agriculture, and energy, I think I missed one or repeated one twice. We can really structure any type of parametric contract where there's a data set with a long enough history, because parametric is just index-based insurance. If X happens, then Y. You get paid out very simply. And that transparency allows farmers to get paid and to get coverage anywhere in the world as long as they have an internet connection and without needing necessarily the kind of licensing that you need in the US.
What when I mentioned census, Ashish, what I meant was there are papers out there, scientific papers, where guys have created machine learning models that basically manipulate on image detection to look at different phenomena. So one of them will be the type of diseases that actually attack certain crops. Let's say, for example, maize is attacked, I think, by something called blight, and there's a definite, it's visually detectable. So those are some of the aspects that can actually go through machine learning to actually have sensors detect this on the ground. Sensors not within the centralized aspect, but connected to different sources of truth to interpret what actually has been captured from these sensors, so that we can actually get very high resolution data from a small holder farm situation.
Yeah, so maybe if I could just chime on that, I think there are tools that can be used to detect a lot of things. I think, as Robbie has said, this is just the early use cases that we're exploring right now. But definitely, as more data becomes available, irrespective of the source, really, not necessarily only remote sensing data. I do think as more data becomes available, even IoT data. This will be used to drive more products, more parametric based products. And I think in respect of that, maybe it might be worth mentioning a project such as Athena protocol. They are building a protocol that will allow IoT devices to be deployed that collect a bunch of ecological data sets. And this will now be something that will complement remote sensing and satellite imagery very well. So I think the future is really exciting, and as more data becomes available, more use cases will become unlocked. Yeah.
So we're just crossing that 1 hour mark, so probably gonna wrap it up here. Just any last words, I guess, from anyone?
I would just like to say thank you so much, Shamba. You are doing marvelous job by developing all these satellite-based, tools, Web3 tools. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having us and for setting up this space. And Shamba's doing incredible work in this area, and we look forward to working with them in the near future. I need to run right now, but again, thank you so much for putting together this space and looking forward to more in the future.
Yeah, thanks to Attack for organizing this. Nice meeting all of you guys. Thank you guys for attending, everybody who came. And let's continue talking on the sidelines of this. I'll reach out to some of you. If you have anything that you think we can be able to support you with, reach out to us as well. And looking forward to engaging with you again next time. Have a nice weekend, everybody.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.